and run your podcast as well.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, in the UK, average commute time is 1 hour, regardless. So that's the average commute time. You can easily get 2 podcasts in. And I used to go see my colleagues, John especially, and every morning he goes like, "Did you hear this podcast? Did you listen to that podcast? Did you?" It's like, chill. I know you're sitting an hour in the car. I sit an hour and 45 minutes in the car, but I'm not listening to podcasts, but I should have. So definitely the way people are commuting now and the people are consuming content, and the reason why they're consuming content has actually led to podcasts becoming a very effective platform of conveying messaging and a transfer of knowledge. Yes, there is a, as you say, a selfless reason for doing it, but there's also a business reason for doing it. Companies are doing it because it attracts people. It builds their credibility, it builds their relationship with the audience, and the audience is more likely to hire their services to solve X, Y, Z problem. Um, but for people, from a consuming content point of view, it's convenient. Podcasts are convenient.
But it's reflected across like every channel in the way that people shop now anyway. Like you've got, you used to have like, if you imagine a continuum, and at one point people will look at marketing and then become, then they start need to interact with a salesperson or interact with the business in some way. Now people want to go further down the process on their own without talking to anybody before they actually start interacting with a person or with a sales representative or something like that. So it's like once upon a time you'd walk into Dick Smith when they're around and you'd say, I want a camera, what have you got? And then they're like, oh, we've got this one, it does this, we've got that one, it does that. And now you walk in and you go, all right, I want to see a Samsung this or a Nikon that, and you can't tell me anything about it because I know them inside out and I've watched videos on them for an hour and I know what they are. So it's changed the way people, or consumerism and technology has changed the way people interact with brands. So,
well, look at the. I mean, on Twitter the other day, I was looking at the statistics. In the US now, the average time in front of a screen, so whether it's a mobile phone or whatever, but let's say it's a smartphone, is 3.7 hours a day. That's how much the average American consumes FaceTime or screen time. 3.7 hours a day. And a lot of that goes to streaming, the usual Netflix and chill, not chill, it's up to whoever. Um, but it's also, as Avon just said, it is about doing the research. It is about doing the legwork. Previously, you're absolutely right. You go into a shop, tell me what you've got, and you move away. But then people started getting aware of the fact that whoever was recommending them the product was actually being incentivized to recommend the product. So there was no real unbiased advice being given in the shops. I know from my Samsung days that when we used to train shop representatives, there was heavy financial incentives in the background, whether through points and gifts and whatever. So people started getting, maybe just like me, a little bit cynical about things. So they started doing a lot of the research. And you're absolutely right. You go on YouTube, you look at unboxing, you look at demonstration, you look at the iPhone 11 ads now on telly. It's all about how resistant and how strong that product is. It took about 2 generations to get away from bent gate. I don't know if you guys remember that. I think it was the iPhone 6 or 7 that people had in their pockets and they used to bend and not get back to shape. So now all of a sudden the iPhone 11 is like the most resistant bend-proof type of product. And people are doing these research and they're going online and they're consuming that information. And then what you said in a previous engagement that we had with a client, how you build content on the websites. Like you take your product versus X, right? So you do your comparison content, and people are reading this. It's like Asana versus Trello, and mostly published by Asana.
And they're their own lead pages. And then you try and rank, because I like half the time when I'm trying to search for software for a client, I'll look at whatever their problem is, X management system or management software. And then I'll come up with something, so like project management software, like you said, Asana. And then I go alternatives to Asana. And then I try and just get a big list of everything that's out there, do basically a matrix and work out what all the features are, what the client needs, what's a nice to have to have, any kind of nuances that are particular, and then by mapping out that analysis and doing those alternative 2 pages, you do have that biased information like from those companies that are doing those lead pages, but they can rank really high and beat every other platform, or even just have it paid through ads.
Yep.
And they get pretty good results around that. And what you were saying before about with the sales side, doing your own research is important because my first job out of school, I mentioned Dick Smith before. I worked at Tandy, which was essentially Dick Smith as well. But we were driven by commissions, and so it was kind of like a fight to whoever got to the customer first, and then it was about getting a warranty upsell. Whereas now people don't like to be sold. I mean, it still frustrates me if I go on Vistaprint and like 7 times before I click to go to cart, I know what I want. I know what I'm there for. I don't want my business card printed on a mug because it looks weird. But they're building these little sales opportunities into the process. And as frustrating as it is, there's one thing that they do is like, we're about to delete the file that you put in there. And it's purely a touch point. It's purely like a month down the line, we want to remind you that you bought from Vistaprint and that you can order more stuff, and we want to incentivize a bit of risk in there that you might lose something that you spend time on. So get in there quick and buy some more. So
a lot of the onus, if you wish, has gone by choice. I think by the consumer choice has been moved upstream, assuming that of course the consumer is on the upstream. But it has massively affected the way sales is being conducted, right? So definitely in the shops, you cannot simply have a high rotation of young people come in, for example, and tell you, well, aisle 23 is where you'll find, let's say, mobile phones, and aisle 26 is where you find laptops. Because of the heavy level of knowledge, or a strong level of knowledge that people come into the store with. And again, let's not forget that brick and mortar is not doing very well. So most people come into the store just to feel the product, touch and feel the product. And then they'll go back online and they'll buy it online. So there's a massive responsibility for those brick and store shops to actually train their people, because if they are not up to scratch, if they cannot give informed answers to the consumers, those consumers that are buying online, more than likely from either a partner shop of those brick and mortar or their online e-commerce venture, they will lose that sale as well. So consumers have gone to the point where they have gone from give me information because I'm ill-informed to now I'm possibly overly informed, and I'm going to test you because I'm going to see if you're worthy of my dollars being spent in your store or platform or whatever. So, Jeremy, from a sales point of view, have you noticed this big difference as well?
Oh, huge, 100%. The information age that we're living in has revolutionized the sales industry because everybody is an expert. They all have more knowledge than you about things that you're trying to sell and talk to customers about. So you really need to be more than just an expert on it. You need to be a master about whatever you're talking about. And it shows with all the training nowadays. It's not about trying to hard sell anybody. I find I get more people to call me back and to buy my products, calling me back, just giving them the opportunity to call me back when they want, and not trying to, pressure somebody into purchasing at a certain period of time, and it's all about education, becoming that expert, and if they, or what's called a trusted advisor, you get that trusted advisor position, and then they will buy anything off you. And you don't need to pressure them into doing anything.
It's funny you mention that, because the way I'm looking at things now is that you've got extremely informed consumers, you've got extremely informed sales and sales reps and whatnot. You've got companies that are out there delivering content in order to try and gain people's attention and their business, of course, and their loyalty, etc. But there seems to be now a macro trend or a hyper micro trend that is all focused on one thing, the experience, right? So in the industry, we'll call it customer experience. But let's widen that up to as a wider net as possible, and it is about the experience. When you walk into a store, when you go online, when you do X.
And really, experience is the front line or the marketing end of advertising and marketing end of a business.
Absolutely. I mean, look at it from a pyramid point of view. You've got, well, maybe not a pyramid, but you've got different types of experiences. You've got the experience with the brand, you've got the experience from a customer point of view, and that takes into account the entire customer journey. Then you've got the UX, which is the user experience on a specific platform, for example. Let's say your user experience with Excel is different than your customer experience with Office 365, and that's a completely different experience from your brand experience with Microsoft, right? And then, of course, then you've got the user interface, which is where every button is on the screen. So you can drill down and drill out and scope and descope as much as you like, but it all comes back to the experience. We are, as a species, I believe now, in society and from a cultural point of view, we are very time poor. We have
bad time management. Is that
yes.
What you say?
Yeah. That would be a synonym of it, but it all depends on the personalities and everything. But let's say we have very little attention to give, and we've got lots and lots and lots of organizations trying to get our attention as well. So there's this constant fight between giving our attention and getting something back for it. Let's call it time poor for now, but we can probably do an entire podcast on time management, especially with an automation expert sitting over there.
Facebook have a role description which is attention engineer. So basically someone who, like pokies when they flash and they're like, woohoo, you win. It's the same thing, but they're just putting it on your phone. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so it all comes back down to the experience. And if the experience is not good, regardless of what it is, whether it's B2B, B2C, whether you're in store, online, on the phone, it doesn't really matter. Whether you're even going into a boardroom to have a meeting or do a pitch, if you're coming in and you've got a really bad feeling about, for example, the people that you're pitching with, and you've got a really good product, and all of a sudden there's this interest from multiple parties, you're going to probably go with the one that actually made you feel good when you're pitching, right? So it's not just about customer experience. The experience in general is becoming extremely important.
Well, 83% of people will pay more for a better customer experience, but only 1% of people report actually having a consistently good customer experience.
Yeah.
So you want to charge more, be better with your people, be better with your customers.
I mean, that is an absolutely mind-boggling statistics. Only 1% report a consistent.
Well, about 65, 67% of companies are now reporting that their main focus is shifting towards customer experience. So a lot of industries are moving towards that, particularly when you've got people like Telstra. I know it sounds a little bit ironic. Telstra and Virgin and Cleanaway, all these ASX listed companies, name a ton of others, but they're implementing things like Salesforce, and from a CRM perspective, you say that it's not about getting the sale and driving it home and forcing them to make a decision. It's about allowing them to be ready. So what do you need to show them? When do you need to show them? How do you help them make a decision that's favourable to you? So you say, I want to sell you, or I'm not here to sell you X. I'm here to help you make a decision. Whether you buy or don't buy doesn't affect me. But I want to give you all the answers and dispel any questions that you might have. And that's how I frame a lot of my conversations when talking about implementing a CRM system is, what it might cost a lot of money to implement, but you're going to save money on the back end with the staff, or you might take a bit of time and energy and effort in the front end. It might be a little bit difficult to do, but you're going to get the value at the back end, and here's some calculation tools. But if you want, there's some other options, but if you want to meet again, here's a book a meeting link. So you kind of put the ball in their court, but without seeming forceful or pushing them that way.
Well, funny you mentioned that because in the article that you sent me yesterday, sorry, in the assignment that you sent me yesterday, you were basically saying that in order to calculate the value of a CRM system, usually you have a mixed team of experts in there, of which one of them is an accountant.
Hmm.
I mean, without going into the details to support what you're saying, accountants have actually demonstrated, right, through what's the word I'm looking for? When you do scientific method.
Yeah, like qualitative or quantitative analysis.
No, anyway, it'll come back to me. And so they've been able to demonstrate and prove through mathematics and accounting principles that a CRM is actually extremely effective and there's a high return on the investment when you actually implement the CRM. And so it comes back down to, yes, absolutely right, implementing a CRM is important for a business, but the objective of the CRM is
Better customer relationships.
exactly. So here we come back to the same point that we've been talking about, which is the experience, and the experience is based on that relationship that you've got with the customer. So without that relationship, without understanding your customers and how they operate and what it is they want, or what problems they have, they would like you to solve with your products or service, the jobs to be done from a value proposition point of view. Um, it is all about understanding the customer, their needs, and responding to them. There's no point, for example, building a car with 26 wheels if someone just needs to drive, for example, their kids from home to school. They don't need 26 wheels, right? Or they simply need a transportation method. So in Holland, for example, now they've got small electric bathtubs, or it looks like bathtubs. Yes, there was a small accident and 9 kids died, unfortunately. But now they've been recertified with seatbelts and everything. And it's all a question of culturally in Holland, public transport is extremely important, bicycles, etc. Pooling resources in Holland is also very good. So they put 9 kids, one parent takes 9 kids to school from the neighborhood, from the building, from the neighbors, or whatever.
I'm more interested in the one that's like a pub on wheels.
Yes, that is.
The only thing is towards the end, people get less interested in pedaling.
and more in drinking. There have been stories where some of these have actually ended up in the canal, but that's a different story. But again, it's about the experience, right? So, and that's highly sponsored by the Council of Amsterdam because it brings people in because it gives them a really good experience. They're out drinking, so that's VAT or GST if you wish, and the pubs are making money. The tourism, which is good for the city council and for the country itself. Even Schiphol Airport gets a cut out of it. Everyone's happy, right?
So we can see you've got a lot of expertise in customer experience, then, Floris. So I guess we can talk about your backstory, or who are we talking to here?
Well,
customer experience, is it?
Well, look, in my point of view, yeah. Okay, so from a background point of view, I've done, I've worked in larger organizations, Canon, Nikon, Target, Samsung, and I've worked in marketing and product marketing, and it has given me immense opportunities for me to learn quite a lot. In a corporate environment, albeit, yes, a company like Samsung, which has 150,000 plus employees, it's not exactly a startup, right? It used to be back in the 60s, and it started with actually one fella.
A corporate environment is just a high process driven non-corporate environment. It's really the same, but just very process driven, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Not all processes actually work in corporate, and then that's the irony of it as well, which is you've got lots of processes, and you're another number implementing and executing these processes, but they're not necessarily good ones.
Well, it becomes all about governance and processes, because at some point, as a CEO, you're not going to meet all of your staff.
No.
You're not going to know them by name. You're not going to know when their holidays are coming up and what their dog's name is. So having these systems is kind of like a business is a system of systems. Mm-hmm. So being able to bring them all together and structure them and automate as much as possible and reduce error rates and all that sort of stuff is probably the only way you can go at scale.
Well, I mean, I look at corporates as an equivalent to manufacturing, right? Because those compliance and governance and processes, they're actually put in there in order to replicate activities. And what's more, replicable than what you do on a production line, right? So
Mhm.
yes, a corporate, I think
Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the division of labor.
exactly. You're absolutely right. But also to your previous point, I mean, a large corporate is basically a non-corporate environment with rules, right? Governance, processes, and not necessarily good ones. Again, I say some companies have actually made it, and they've been successful at it. Others, some progress to make, some improvement along the way. But it doesn't matter. Look, in my for me anyway, the experience has been extremely positive in the sense that yes, I've done a business management qualification, uni diploma and all that, fantastic. I've done an exchange program between Holland and France, and culturally I speak 5 languages, and I've lived in 8 different countries and changed addresses 20 times. All of that is fantastic. But it has given me the opportunity to learn and learn and learn and constantly keep learning, which is why, from a customer experience point of view, even from a marketing point of view, continuous improvement is essential, because today's customers' needs are not tomorrow's customers' needs, and they sure as hell are not what they used to be 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, or even a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Things change. And so that continuous improvement and the background that I've got has actually led me to make that one of the essential things that I like to talk about, but also like to work on and help people with, which is you need to constantly be improving so that your experience, or the experience that you're offering your customers, is as good as it can be, so people keep coming back. Right? You want to create that stickiness, that brand loyalty, whatever you want to call it. You want people to come back because ultimately you want their dollars. But you're offering them something that will actually do something good for them and help them solve a problem. But you're not a charity. You're in it for the money as well.
Well, businesses are being, well, customers being less and less loyal to businesses, and being able, the more you focus on trying to build that loyalty, you're going to hopefully reduce your overall marketing costs as well. So
Yes, and this is why I would imagine in your line of work, from a marketing automation point of view, that when you have that lead nurture campaign and processes, it is about reducing costs, but it's also about maximizing the efficiency of your messaging in order to achieve a greater return.
yeah, well, I mean, I've seen a trend towards more one-to-one personal messages. Like, it's less about here's our shiny catalog, and more about, hey, we stuffed up, we made a mistake, or where I want to know a bit more about you, and doing that real personal one-to-one connection. I received an email the other day from a software platform, and it was like there was no images, there was no buttons, no flashing things for me to click on, and it was simply, hey, I'm new, I'm the new marketing manager, and this is my first go at sending an email out to 700,000 people. Kind of scary, hope I don't stuff it up. And then it led
the
into
honesty behind it really, it grabs attention.
It made me read the rest of the email, and it was quite long, but I read it all. And in a world where you just go delete, 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 scroll, scroll, scroll,
White noise.
white noise, yeah, this one resonated human, person to person. So it's about having those one-to-one marketing relationships.
Emotional connections, really.
And at scale.
At scale,
At scale, yeah, that's the tricky part. And like you said, it is constantly evolving. So I mean, you can create an evergreen process and have 3 or 4 steps, and then for each individual, it's right for them. So like I sent a message out the other day using a chatbot, and my client just wanted to get people towards his Adelaide store. And so in order to figure out who was in Adelaide, I went onto the chat, I sent out a broadcast. I'm saying, hey, which store are you near? I'd like to send you something. And then I had, Adelaide, Brisbane, neither. So depending on what they clicked, so if it was Adelaide, then they got a discount code that they could use in that store, with some other little conversation. If it was in Brisbane, same. If it was online, then they got an online code. But each of those allowed me to tag them. So now I know who's in Adelaide, and next time I have something that's specific to that region, I can just target those individuals. Hey, last time you mentioned you were in Adelaide. I thought this would be useful for you.
So would it be fair to say, sorry, just to jump on a different topic, but so would it be fair to say that one of the objectives of the CRM is to know as much of our customers as we possibly can so that we can segment them into buckets that we can then do, as you say, one-to-one communication with, but at scale?
Yeah. So you've got different types of target market analysis, and usually big companies will pay someone to do things like McDonald's might do research, and they pay someone to go and or like 50 people to anonymously go and buy a particular item, rate how what the customer service was like and what the food was like, the kinds of people that they dealt with or saw in the cafe or in the restaurant. So that's one way of doing analysis, but you want to try and get your customers to give you as much little insights as possible, like the time of day they come in, the mindset when they walk into the store.
That's why there's buttons everywhere, and like the happiness buttons and the surveys that I'm getting on software all the time. How are you today?
Yeah.
Smiley faces.
But exactly, and that you should not have more than 5 buttons, right? So you've got your neutral one, you've got 2 on either side, so 5 buttons. So you've got extremely disappointed, happy, neutral, happy, very happy. You see them at airports as well when you come out of the toilets as well. Then you're pressing red, green, or yellow, amber, or whichever colors.
Feedback.
Absolutely.
Loops everywhere.
Absolutely.
But then you can draw other inferences from that data. Like if you try and just say, are they happy or sad? That's not enough. What you need to try and do is say, there was a marketing campaign 4 weeks prior. How many people did we see a spike in people actually leaving any form of feedback in relation to that? Because that might have driven something that changed an emotion in the people, like it was a really heartfelt campaign. Does that make them really happy immediately after that, or in a period of time after that? Like I got an Aldi catalogue the other day, and it was the Black Friday sale, but the catalogue starts on the Wednesday, so it's open for that whole week. They have got these every week, but they would have had to think about this way back, like 6 to 12 months ago, because they had all the graphics done in the catalogue. They had all the products were black to match with Black Friday. So I mean, half of them are off the shelf, like a black TV or a black toaster, but some of them would have had to have been specially made in the product cycle. So they've mapped the product cycle to the advertising cycle, to the content generation, to the actual event being in the store. And that as a customer experience, all the way back in the chain, really paid off for me. It wasn't lost on me at all. And I'm sure that, as pricing and all that aside, that, all these elements come together. And they've got research and data on that, on how effective that's working for them.
Yeah, but you're looking at it, sorry, Jeremy, looking at it from a critical eye because you're in the business.
Yeah.
If you are your average consumer who's not, for example, a marketing expert or even related to marketing, you're looking at it go like, oh, that's coincidental. It's Black Friday come Friday. And I've got, catalog from Aldi that says I can buy all this. Yes.
It's just like, oh,
exactly. But you're absolutely right. I mean, in my days, I remember at Canon, for example, when I was doing mail order catalogs, working with the likes of Lyreco and Office Depot, etc. And I basically had to have anywhere between 6 to 9 months lead time on the development of a yearly catalog.
Yeah.
And then Lyreco kind of sort of like changed their business model. They had the yearly catalog, and then they had quarterly catalogs as well. And then because I was working on a Europe, Middle East, and Africa basis, I had 70% of that product selection was European fixed or from regional HQ. And then every country had another 30% of product selections that was local to the market. Yeah. So trying to combine all of that, I mean, internally from a process point of view, it was as complex as the budgeting process of an organization of that size.
Yeah.
When you're working on a 2-year fixed forecast, and then 2 years of finger in the air, how many numbers are we going to sell?
Yeah, and then you've got to do like country specific for the content, like like IKEA catalogs. They edit out the woman in the kitchens and in the bathrooms because they're not allowed to show So do you find from a sales perspective that this customer experience stuff makes your job easier?
Yeah, well, I mean, the marketing is the number one key now to drive leads, right?
Mm.
So if the customer is more educated along the path, then one, it makes our job easier, and two, we're actually able to do our job because they already have the knowledge that they are required to have, so they're more qualified. So, you don't have to do as much qualification. You can just continue that. But it doesn't matter where you are along that stage with that journey for the customer. You can still be able to educate along the way and just reassure, confirm their existing, all their experience, like all their information that they've already been discussing, but putting it like in a human touch, right? And that confirms everything that they've been, already been researching. So how can a small business? I think a lot of viewers of this specific podcast might actually be more so like small business, sole trading kind of viewers. I think how would they benefit from when you're looking at branding, I guess marketing strategy from Aldi? How could they benefit from something that they're doing, something like that?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of the core concepts are becoming more and more accessible with all the kinds of software tools that are out there that are either got a freemium or they're $10 a month or something like that. So I think, big businesses are big because they get these things right. So there's nothing stopping the small business from doing exactly the same. That chatbot thing I was talking about, they're still on the free plan. So as long as you can put together a series of conversations and understand what those conversations are going to be, should be, I think people are actually making a shift from big business. They see institutions and big corporates and it's like the evil corporations, and they want to help
decentralization of these big corporations.
And the salespeople, such as your experience level, they're a huge part of that whole marketing picture. When someone walks up to you in, let's say, I'll use my Dick Smith example, and goes, "Hey, what do you want?" Yeah, it's crap, right? It's really, really bad. But if they walk up and go, "Hey, how you going?"
Dick Smith being an electrical chain.
If anyone doesn't know what a Dick Smith is anymore, they are kaput and bust. So for businesses that
so that might be not a good example.
But they maybe didn't keep up with the trends. Yeah. So, but like cafe, for example, like you walk in there like, what? You're going to have a really bad customer experience.
Funny you mention that. Another parent of the school my kid goes to, the cafe right across the street from the school, which is halfway between her and the house, her house, she stopped going there because the guy had a go at her the owner from across the kitchen over the counter had a go at her because she was asking a question about her loyalty card. Buy 4 coffees, get the 5th one for free type of loyalty card, right? And he had a go at her. She stopped going. And literally that cafe is on her way from her house to the school where she walks 10 months a year. That guy lost a customer because he had a go about a loyalty point that she actually was justified in asking for.
I had someone come to me and they got rejected from another cafe because they were on their phone while they're at the register, or like talking on the phone and like, I live at Long Black, and then they'll get back on the phone.
Yeah.
But when they were standing in front of me, I'd just wait, and because they're asking the person on the phone if they want something, so you actually get more sales. And two, it seems like it's just an everyday part of things. It's like buying a bus ticket. It's just something you do. It's not necessarily like you as the business owner or whatever probably aren't the most important thing in their day. You're just a function of what they need to do to get by.
Yeah, 100%.
So understand where they're at, what their attitude is when they're coming into the store, and support it in a way. So having those engagements and where you can, we're talking about automating, and here I am talking about real face-to-face interactions.
Yeah.
But from a salesperson's perspective, if from the CRM side, if you could do a bit of white space analysis and they're on the phone and they say, this is what you've got. I can see there's a gap here. Maybe this product might interest you, or whatever. There's a being able to suggest other products. There's being able to go, right, well, most people, because everybody wants to be most people, most people do this, or they get the add-on service or something like that. So there's a huge part in the marketing that occurs there.
Absolutely agree with you, but before I forget, because I've got several things running in my mind I would like to say, but to go back to your questions, like how does, for example, big corporate experience relate to, for example, SMBs? Well, first of all, I think, and we kind of touched on that subject previously, which is if it weren't for the larger organizations that would have actually driven, in part, driven all of these advances in marketing methodologies and strategies and processes, etc. The vendors that are currently now offering, as Avon said, for like $10 a month, these softwares for any SMBs to take advantage of, would not have actually been able to create those softwares on the basis of these, marketing principles that have been developed in those large corporate environments. So
that's where they came from,
exactly. So I would say there's a huge benefit of having, let's call them the evil corporations. In some cases they're not, but let's call them corporations. There's a lot of benefit that has been able to, let's say, democratize the marketing principles to SMBs through the provision of those solutions by vendors like Zoho, Infusionsoft, Keep, and etc. So that's the first point. Second of all, there's, as Avon said, there's absolutely nothing preventing, for example, small organizations from taking these principles and running with them. Yes, at a lower scale. Yes, a bit more resource constraint in terms of the people doing it. But a perfect example was my garage door was busted. And so the guy who came in to fix it took, unfortunately, a long time to fix it because a part was missing anyway. It took about a month and a half to fix. But apparently the guy was extremely busy. So here I am standing, trying to plug my services, maybe trying to help him because I thought there was a long lead time, thinking maybe he is not operating efficiently. And I wanted to present the services of Avon as well to him. And then he turns around and says, actually, no, my wife used to work for a large corporate. She quit her job. She's now my marketing manager, and I've got too much work. And why? Because she actually implemented the CRM system.
Yeah.
Right, so she's been able to actually gather the information, do the whole, know your customers, segment the customers, do the marketing campaigns, do some direct mailing, do a bit of search engine optimization, have a website, have your website reviewed on Google, all of these things that any SMB can basically do. It requires a lot of time, yes, and a lot of time to do it after a working day. So it requires commitment and dedication to do it after hours. But it's possible.
I think the key part missing is the education in all of it.
Yes.
Because there's lots of little things that come together, and everyone goes, yeah, I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to build a website. Wow, that's great. You build a glossy magazine, you shove it in the shelf, and no one sees it. What's the point? So you've got to build it. It's not if you build it, they will come. You have to build it, then you have to promote it, then you have to frequently talk about it and bring some other things, elements in together, and it has to be mapped to something else. And it's not like the hardest thing to do. It's just a number of things that have to be done together. And if you do a plan, and if you chip away at it, you get it done, and it'll start working for you. And the last point I wanted to make was you mentioned about the bean counters before being part of the process. In a report from Deloitte, 70% of Australian businesses don't have a CRM, and 95% of
it's a big market for you.
It is, yeah. 95% that implement one experience benefits.
Yep.
And if there's only like 1% of all businesses are large corporates, like the rest are all small business. So why are they small?
Is that the statistic?
I think it's 2% actually. Sorry. 2%. Yeah, 96 or 98. I'm not a walking dictionary, but it is a huge portion of the market is just small businesses.
Yeah.
So not everyone needs to be ASX listed. Not everyone needs to be that big, but they're that big because they follow up. They know who their customer is. Mm-hmm. They try and talk to them regularly, and they call them back.
I think the last point we should talk about, because I think we're running out of time here a little bit, but I think the last point we should talk about is the one thing that ties everything together. And I know this word is hyperly overused, but I'm going to say it anyway. Strategy.
I thought you were going for synergy.
No, that's like early noughties years. No, the strategy. I think that in one previous engagement, I remember putting a strategy together, and someone looked at it and go like, "Yeah, but I don't see the font number and the font color.
Mhm.
That's not a strategy." I'm sorry. Anyway, the important thing and the point is, and I think we should have an entire podcast on that subject, and there's so much to discuss, and it really fires me up even more so than about marketing, etc. Is that once you have a strategy, and again, if you look at strategy from a corporate point of view, it does not mean a 26,000 page document detailing every single action by every single employee and making sure that you audit every employee number
Yeah.
and put it into a project management. No. We're talking about very simply saying, what is the outline of what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to achieve it.
Well, there's a book, $100 Startup, that gives you a 2-page business plan to start your business.
There you
so
go.
it's much the same.
There you go. We've
It
got.
doesn't need to be overly complicated strategy, but it needs to be there.
You're absolutely right. In one of the network building groups that we go to, there's one guy that actually does it in a one-pager.
Yeah.
Right? Business plan on one
Small
page.
text.
Yeah. Well,
Smaller
2 pages
project.
is 2 small booklet pages, so you could definitely just.
You're
put
absolutely
one
right.
page
One A4 or
Yeah.
one A3. Right?
Front
It
and
doesn't
back.
really. But it is exactly that, and you look at, for example, the Strategizer, which is an outfit based out of Switzerland, and these guys have a lot of free resources on their website, from value proposition canvases to model business model canvases, etc., etc., etc.
HubSpot has a phenomenal amount of stuff on its
Yes, on
content.
their blog.
crazy.
It is
Incredible.
ridiculous. I think I googled like how to fix my tap and it was on there. Like not actually, but you get the idea. It's
Yeah.
just and they've got this concept they call the flywheel, which is basically just have people coming around and around and around back to your site and looking at your content. So they very content heavy. I think you can redraw the sales funnel all you want, but the content gets people to where you're at.
I mean,
How did you guys want to finish this off? Like today.
I think we just do a high five and
And job well done.
yeah,